So, you want to learn how to dress up your projects with a little bow tie like this? Tinker, tinker. Well, stick around, I'll show you how. Hey, I'm Jeff Devlin of Schoolhouse Woodworking. I'm a licensed contractor, woodworker. We named our company Schoolhouse Woodworking many, many years ago because the goal was to teach. Wow, that's nice. It's not always the perfect method, but it's a way that I've learned over the 30 years doing this that I believe sometimes simpler is better. So I've got a piece of wood here that's got a crack pretty significant. Now, honestly, I'm a little bit of a pack rat and I do not like to throw things away. And there's no reason to. When you have this kind of crack, there's two methods, or actually there's probably 10 methods that you could use to secure this crack. One, you could put epoxy in it. That's pretty much the easy way. But the other way is to put a bow tie in. As you can see right here with this large crack, what it does is by the angle, the flare out, that prevents that crack when you let it into the wood or cut it into the wood. It prevents that crack from getting any bigger. So you're not trying to just fill it, because if you fill it, what's going to happen is the wood's going to expand and contract. So the angle of this dovetail patch or bow tie, what it does is it prevents that wood from getting larger, because you can see the larger, or cracking more, you can see the larger area on the ends, and then that prevents it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to cut your bow tie patch on the table saw so it's absolutely perfect, and then let it into this piece of wood so it's perfectly flush, so that way you can keep this beautiful chunk of wood. So meet me over at the table saw. So what I've done is I've cut a little piece of wood that is 4 inches long by about 2 1/4 inches wide. Yeah, just under 2 1/4 inches. If you want to hand cut this, that's fine, good on you. I just made the mark so you can kind of sort of see what we're going to do. What I want out of this is imperfect. I don't want it to look like it's machined, so maybe one side being a little bit different than the other is what I like in my piece, because then it looks like it was all done by hand. My bandsaw, the blade broke, so we're not using that right now. We're going to use the table saw. The angle that is used a lot in dovetails is 14 degrees. So I've already set my saw to 14 degrees, and I have this cross cut. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it up like this, and I'm going to run it through right at that angle. It's set right now at 2 inches high because I have 4 inches. So I'm going to set it, I'm going to run it, I'm going to spin it around, I'm going to run it again, and then I'm going to flip it and do it 4 times to create the bow tie. Now I'm going to flip it. So there's the bow tie that I'm going to use. I want it a little bit fatter. Some people like it a little skinnier, but I just think for this kind of cut, this is the way I'm going to go. I'm going to take, instead of taking that blade all the way up there, I'm just going to use the chisel and clean that up. This will also tell me if I'm off a little bit. I should have probably did a stop, so that way I knew it was the same on both sides. But quite honestly, I'm not afraid of a little hand tool. So that's what we want, a nice. And this one, see the way there's a little bit of overlap on that? So now I have to do a little more handwork. Just chisel that all out. So one thing you want to take into consideration is the grain of the patch. The grain always goes opposite. It's for strength. If I did it this way, it would expand and contract in the joint and it could potentially blow. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to hold it down and I use my knife. See the way it's still scooting around? I'm going to cut just the tape and mark that line. And what I'm doing is I'm really lightly scoring the fibers of the wood. Now I can grab my piece of tape, yank it off, and it should get cut those little spots. So now I can see exactly where I need to go. So now I know exactly where my patch is going. The thickness of the patch, or how how much you're going to cut out will depend on the thickness or chunk of the wood. I don't have to do the whole piece. I just have to do a little bit. This was already 3/4 of an inch. I'm pretty much only going to go about 5/8. I'm going to leave it proud, and then I'm going to hand plane the top off a bit. So now I have a little plunge router here with a straight cutting bit. And you can see I set it up so that it's just a little bit under the whole thickness of the material. And the reason is I want the thickness to be proud of this surface, so that way I can plane it flush. In this case, what I'm going to do is be a little smarter. Right now I've set my depth so that my plunge, I can keep coming back to it, right? So I can set that, so that's my finished depth. I'm going to loosen it up a little bit and only go down, I don't know, about half that. So that way I'm not taking all of it at once, because that's a lot of material to chunk out at one time. So I'll turn it on, plunge it down, and then start removing that material. Now I can get in there with a chisel and clean up those corners. I'll tell you, there's a point where you have to make a decision where whether or not you want to keep trying to carve out the thick piece of wood, or whether or not you want to manipulate your bow tie. And in this case, what I'm going to do, I know this is a little crazy. I think I might recut this side on the table saw and then clean up a little bit of this. Going to ease over the bottom a little bit and round it over, so that way it makes it easier to get in. And all I'm doing is beveling it just a little bit. Yep, there she goes. So now, I'm making an absolute mess, but that's kind of the fun. Just going to use a scrap piece of wood. Knock it down. Voila. I'll let that dry for a little bit, and then I'll come back and plane it. So the final step in this process is to just level off or take off that high point of the bow tie. So I'll just throw it in my vise, clamp it in. When you get down to the end, you have to be a little careful because you start to go on your other piece, but then you can go down the wood. You don't want to hand plane cross grain for too long. You can if you're trying to like clean something up, but then you have to come back. Once we've got it flat with the surface, we can come back this way and do little scoring passes just to make sure it's cleaned up. But I'll do a finish sanding over yonder, and we should be good. There you go. So there you go, an easy way to fix a crack in a large piece of wood or even a small piece of wood. And it adds a lot of really cool detail. Historically, these would have been added. They would have taken a little bit longer time than we just took with simply just maybe a drill and a couple of chisels. And that would have been a lot of hard work. But you know what? I really, truly believe that anybody can do this. You just have to take your time, and when you make a mistake, fix it.